Okay, I'll call the June 12th, 2024 meeting of the Kickapoo Area School Board to order, and we will kick things off with roll call, Marla.
Janet Mathis. Here. Earl Wallace.
Here.
Isaac Wallace.
Here.
Rich James.
Yes.
Bo Schrader.
Here.
Scott Walter.
Here. Next up, affirmation of the proof of publication of the agenda.
I, Kimberly Johnson, hereby certify that the notice of the Kickapoo Area Schools Regular School Board meeting was caused to be published in the Epitaph News and posted on billboards in the following places on 6-7 Kickapoo K-12 School Building, Citizens First Bank, Viola Post Office.
Thank you, Kim. I'll entertain a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
I so move. I'll second.
Motion by Earl, second by Bo to approve the agenda, and I think if your wrist can handle it, Marla, with Rich absent, we'll do all roll call.
Yes. Earl Wallace.
Yes.
Isaac Wallace.
Yes.
Rich James.
Yes.
Bo Schrader.
Yes.
Janet Mathis. Yes. Scott Walter.
Yes. Item 4, audience to visitors and board members. Any members of the public, Marla? Contact you about speaking? No?
No.
Any board members?
Yep.
Have something to share, Bo?
I went to the new school board member gathering in Fenimore on April 18th. I wasn't here last time, I was on Zoom, so I wanted to be in person. Michael Humke, the president of WASB from Dodgeville, was there. First thing when I walked in, I said I was from Kickapoo, and he said Janet Mathis.
Mike and I are like the two longest serving in that board.
Yeah, I think he said that. And then Ben Richter, staff council, was there. He's from Madison. I just made some bullet points of things that I took from it. Wisconsin in 2030 will need 150,000 more workers than it currently does right now. School district's biggest hurdles today: recruitment and retention, social and emotional and mental health, morale, and number 4, superintendent turnover. The average is 4 years currently.
Oh my gosh.
Some takeaways as a school board member. They defined it, how good people make the best decisions when given 2 right answers. I think that was worth writing down. I think a lot of times the decision we're trying to make, they're both right answers, but which one's the best? If your vote is in the minority and lose, still participate and be flexible. So if I was really passionate about something and it got voted down, I shouldn't just then, if we talk about it for a half hour, sit here and follow. I should then, think about, this is the decision we made, like participate and be flexible. Jamie from CISA was there. He said, be a good communicator and hold people accountable without being a jerk. And that really stuck to me. Without being a jerk.
You get it.
Listen to understand in public, not to respond. 75% of questions in Wisconsin on the school board is sports related. So we talked about it for like 20 minutes. So in public, he said, be rubber and listen. Talk about the chain of command and call the coach and the AD. Don't tell someone in public how you feel. Listen. Number 5, have a 30,000 feet view or look or approach. Look at the big picture of how a decision affects everyone else, good and bad, and not just laser focus on the controversy. And have fun. So I really enjoyed it. Learned a lot, and I just wanted to bring my bullet points back.
Sounds like a great meeting.
Yeah, it really was.
Was that one day, full day?
No, it's just 2 hours.
That's a,
Couple of-
yeah, that's a once a year thing for new members, and it's,
Yeah.
Peggy and I went last year, and I couldn't put this one, but,
They packed all that.
It's
in
good.
2 hours.
Yeah.
and that was really a good one, that's her.
Yeah, just my bullet points.
Did they dig into the details of the superintendent turnover at all? Is that just an artifact of folks moved the superintendent late in their careers and then
They
retired?
attributed that, but then they worked backwards. So they went 1 through 4, and I said, why is superintendent, turnover so high? And they went back because of morale, because of the social and emotional mental health, and the recruitment and retention. So it just,
Everything is so connected.
exactly,
Yeah.
so that's why.
I knew we had longer retention in the last about 3 superintendents than just about anywhere, but I had no idea we were that far over the average, and that average has gone down.
Yeah, 4
You know.
years.
So, but still, wow.
Mhm. So what do they do if they leave the superintendent position mid-career? They move to another superintendent position, they get out of education? Or-
Sounded more like that, that if they left, they went somewhere else, but then probably realized it wasn't the school or it wasn't a them problem, it was maybe like that they should be doing something else or what it was, that it's the same or even worse the next place, you know, and stress, so. Yeah, it's really interesting.
Well, thankfully, Kim's contract is 10 years.
Thank you.
Anybody else have anything you'd like to bring up? All right, next up, as we all know, we're losing two valuable employees, Burdette and Tina Nelson. So it's in the agenda to recognize that. And I think they had something done for them outside the board meeting, right, at school?
Yes, a couple of different things. Some of the staff got together and wore aprons and had wooden spoons and did a parade for her. And then the last day of school, we held an in-service where we invited them up to share some special memories that they had and then presented them with a sign that Kenny Kriggs had made in his shop.
That's nice.
So yeah, 35 years and 25 for Burdette, correct, the 25? I know Tina was 35 and I think Burdette was 25.
34.
Is that right?
34.
Oh, 34? Sorry, Burdette.
No, for Tina.
Oh, Tina.
Tina's 34, I think, for Burdette.
Okay,
Well, I'm sure we all thank them for their years of service and, you know, they've had an impact on how many generations of kids. I sit here right now, I'm 56 years old. Merlin Pels and Shirley Noel were my bus driver and the lunch lady in elementary school, so I still remember that.
I looked it up, it's over 1 million meals that had been served. And then when you consider where we've gone with technology from when she started to now, that was a huge change. A lot of changes in her career.
And I'm sure Burdette's number of miles driven.
I know, right? Equally across.
Okay, next up, we've got a lengthy consent agenda. No, I'm sorry, I skipped that. Expense vouchers and receipts. Any questions or comments on those items tonight?
It was making sure the lodge,
Chulo's Lodge, was that for?
Was that a check or a P card statement? I'm assuming it's probably something with the travel
P
club.
card, it was P card.
Yes, that was her travel club trip.
Oh, that was that, okay.
Yeah. Yep.
They haven't gone under yet. have they?
Yeah.
They're on it right
Oh, that's when? Oh, they're on it now?
Yeah.
Okay.
If there are no questions or concerns, somebody feel free to make a motion to approve.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Motion by Janet, second by Isaac to approve.
Isaac Wallace,
Yes.
Rich James.
Yeah.
Paul Schrader,
Yes.
Janet Mathis,
Yes.
Earl Wallace,
Yes.
Scott Walter.
Yes. All right, now moving on to the consent agenda, I'll read the items. Minutes from our May regular board meeting. Administration seeking permission to seek bids for snow plowing, sanding, snow removal, and then bread, milk and meat. Our 24-25 WIAA membership. A number of, again, wonderful to see donations. The Alexander family, $500 for trees. Cade Financial provided $500 for the weight room. The Eggy family and Viola Quick Stop, $300, and Carps Construction, $100. Mr. Wood seeking permission to go on an overnight basketball trip, July 8th and 9th. for a basketball tournament. And that's it.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second it.
Motion by Isaac, second by Earl to approve tonight's consent agenda.
Rich James,
Yes.
Bo Schrader,
Yes.
Janet Mathis,
Yes.
Earl Wallace.
Yes.
Isaac Wallace,
Yes.
Scott Walter.
Yes.
Can I ask you a question before we go on?
Sure.
Does anybody know for sure, WIA still has no membership fee, we pay nothing, is that correct? I know that was that way for a few years, but I also heard they were trying to reinstate it, and I didn't think that happened.
Not that I'm aware of, have they restated?
All right, just curious. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to the action agenda. The first item, 24-25 employee handbook changes, the support staff and bus driver salary schedules. And you've got those in your packet.
That would be the change to the handbook is the addition of these updates.
I'll make a motion to approve the work staff and bus drivers' salary schedules as presented.
I'll second that.
Motion by Earl, second by Janet to approve.
Bo Schrader,
Yes.
Janet Mathis,
Yes.
Earl Wallace.
Yes.
Isaac Wallace.
Yes.
Rich James,
Yes.
Scott Walter.
Yes. Item B on the action agenda, the 2024-25 property and liability insurance, and you see a breakdown with last year's and this year's premiums in your packet.
The packet has the summary, but it doesn't have anything in the header there. What is this, the insurance center or?
Yep, I can talk about it for a few minutes if you guys would like
Yeah.
a little more information, okay. So this is our total renewal for our property and liability, buildings, educators liability, cyber insurance, automobile. Very little change to our premium, only a little under a $5,000 increase. They did increase our property valuation on all our buildings by almost $2 million due to inflationary
So
increases.
that's what accounts for at least a portion of the increase then is the increase. in the-
Yes.
About 4,300.
Yeah. We also added 4 new vehicles over the course of the year with 2
And
2024
deleted-
buses.
Deleted 3 though,
And
right?
and we deleted 3, but those were older ones that didn't have as much value. Apparently, the fact that we are able to keep our deductibles so low is just about a miracle in this market. A lot of places, they're doing a 5% of the total building value, like if you get hail damage to your roof, your deductible is 5% of your building value. Ours is $1,000. So that was a nice thing to see. Most of our deductibles are $1,000 for things. Our vehicles have $500 deductibles, except for the 2 new buses, they have $2,000 deductibles, just because of the massive increase in price and cost of those buses. Those did go up just on those 2 buses. Workman's comp, we're trending really well, so we have a 40% 40% dividend on that, which reduces our cost there by about $8,000. And overall, the 3 categories of employment rates that we have in the state for our types of employees, all those rates went down over the last year, but our overall payroll went up, so we didn't really save much there. But yeah, it was a good renewal. I was a little shocked at how low it came in, just because.
And this is our current provider, right?
This is our current provider.
So we didn't bid anything this year.
Well, the
I mean, I'm
insurance,
not saying you should, I'm just-
the insurance center goes out as our broker
Oh,
and
that's right,
bids
yeah.
for us. But he didn't make any they didn't make any changes because the bids that came back from our current carriers were very competitive.
Can you explain again? I think I asked this last year, but the umbrella policy, what's that? We're paying $3,500 umbrella, what's that?
Yeah.
What does that
Just
capture?
escaping me at the
It's a
moment.
very big umbrella.
Yeah. Let me just find it in here, I have the.
Rain.
Very expensive umbrella.
Remember what he said that was?
Yeah, it is an umbrella that
Escaping me right now.
any big thing that happens outside of anything beyond what would happen, like, we have an umbrella policy, so if a kid was at our house and fell and got hurt, the umbrella covers that outside of that, and I'm sure the school is the same way. That's not a good explanation, but it covers everything that isn't covered by your stuff on property general liability.
Oh, here we go.
Probably a good explanation.
That makes sense, it's just.
Yeah, it must
weird.
just be like an additional extra coverage on top of your, yeah. Because we have, we have extra coverage on everything, auto, general liability, employer's liability, educators across the board on the policy.
And what is the cyber, well, last question, the cyber, so that insurance against any hacking,
Hacking,
Malware,
or if we get targeted and they lock out our systems so that we can't access our own systems,
so
or they hold us for
the only
ransom.
reason I asked that is we just signed the new contract with TC Networks, and part of that was protecting us, so we're not paying twice.
Well, they'll work together, because TC Networks might cover part of it, but they're probably gonna charge us for it. And this does
So
seem
this-
pretty reasonable. CISA had some issues with that some of you are probably aware of here. And I know it had to be in the at a minimum $10,000 to $20,000 for our, and that was not a huge problem. Though I guess it was depending where you were at,
Yes,
it might have seemed pretty huge here, but.
So it's not redundant, it's
I don't
additional.
think so, I think
No.
it's
No,
a
okay.
safety
No,
that
it's-
we really need.
Okay.
I'm kind of surprised it went down in price, even though it wasn't much.
It's
I would have
actually,
expected it to go up, I guess, because it seems like there's just more of these. you know.
Mhm.
there are more and more incidents of it happening all the time, and the amounts of ransom that are asked for, and the cost of it to fight it, a lot of insurance companies won't even offer it anymore. So the
Wow.
fact that our premium went down, Alice and I were both very shocked
Wow.
to see that actually.
And
went
yeah,
down.
and I'm glad we got it with TC Networks, even if we are paying a little extra there too, because then I think, yeah, they kind of cross each other and we should be well covered.
That one does have a little bit higher deductible though, that's a $5,000 deductible, but the cost, there's a lot that goes into it, if you do find yourself in that situation, I mean, there are attorneys involved and other forensics, cyber forensics that get involved because they have to try and trace and track, and it just becomes a big expensive mess.
And that may also, just wonder if that also covers like the liability if something we do wrong causes harm to an individual, like an employee's bank accounts or something get hacked or get whatever, and that they can trace it back to something we did that was the leak. Then you have there's some new things where you have some liability there too, so I think, yeah, it just makes sense to pay the $3,600.
Mhm. Any other thoughts, questions on the insurance? If not, I'll entertain a motion. Approve.
Make a motion to approve the property liability insurance for 24-25 year.
Motion by Earl, second by Rich to approve our property liability insurance for the coming year.
Janet Mathis,
Yes.
Earl Wallace,
Yes.
Isaac Wallace,
Yes.
Rich James.
Yes.
Bo Schrader,
Yes.
Scott Walter.
Yes. Item C on the action agenda, 11 computers needing replacement at a cost of $1,000 each. Seems pretty straightforward. I didn't see anything in the packet, was there?
No, I don't think so. We are going to utilize some more of those ESSER funds that have to be spent by September. And we need some new computers for staff members. Kitchen is specifically mentioned because our new food service director is going to come in and take care of a lot of the reporting, but needs an updated computer to do that efficiently. We also, Kent has a cycle of teachers that need to be on a rotation, but we're just realizing that our office staff are outdated, and so sometimes there's a lag that really prevents the efficiency of their work, so we'd like to kind of prioritize them and the teachers with this group of 11 desktop computers that need to be replaced, and then using our ESSER funds to do so.
So it'd be like 13 or 14 computers
Well, we had 11 on here, so I was just gonna subtract a few of
Oh,
the
from
teachers
teachers
and
and
put
put
them
theirs
in
in. Oh, okay.
first.
After talking with Josh, I think we might be included in this 11, Melissa and I. So I think we're already in there. I'd have to double check with Kent, but I know Josh said that he checked and told Mr. Peterson that we needed to be on
Okay.
it.
And it's Josh, the TC Networks.
Yes. Yep.
So it's basically for 11 desktop computers then, and we'll disperse as needed, I guess.
Make a motion to approve the desktop computers.
I'll second it.
Motion by Isaac, second by Bo to approve purchase of the 11 desktop computers.
Earl Wallace,
Yes.
Isaac Wallace,
Yes.
Rich James,
Yes.
Bo Schrader,
Yes.
Janet Mathis,
Yes,
Scott Walter.
Yes.
can I interrupt again with a question?
Of
Yeah,
course.
ESSER funds, can we, at the end of the year is the limit for spending, or is it like
September 3rd.
September? Okay.
Yeah.
So can we get a report somewhere on how far we are with that? Maybe, it doesn't have to be lengthy or anything, and I don't know, is Sandy still working on some of that?
We transferred it to Melissa,
Yeah,
yeah.
like you mean, I'm gonna touch on that when I go over the.
Okay, then that's fine, I
Yeah.
just didn't see ESSER anywhere, so, okay, thank you.
Okay, the last item on the action agenda at 7:22. Purchase of English textbooks. Looks like digital textbooks.
Great,
Yeah, I think the only thing to really add to that is that's kind of the new direction, and they kind of get you. So they're going away from an actual textbook to buy and requiring you to, they only offer an online version. So this is actually for 3 years. Basically, it will be a certain number of licenses for each of the kids to have in the class. But yeah, it kind of limits you on your options of what you're able to do from the old days of getting a textbook and having it run for however many years, where a lot of them now are just going to an online version and they don't have a hardcover text.
So how does the cost compare though? I mean, if, to what hard copy would be?
If we got a hard
versus
copy,
licensing?
I'm just trying to think, because we had some other books. Usually the books, hardcover books run $75 to $120 roughly
Each,
yeah.
and you use them 5 years.
They usually go a fair amount longer than that. So it will be a little, I mean, I guess as we go forward, this is kind of the first.
So what's the cost, or did I just?
They're roughly around for the grades 8, 9, and 10, and there's some varying levels with the numbers of kids there, but you know, roughly it's $2,300, $2,700 per grade for those 3 years, so.
so it's a total of 11,000.
Total of 11,000 for the 3
It's
years,
a total of $11,000
Yeah,
that's the license for.
for 3 grades for 3 years
3
of
grades
digital
for 3
online.
So how do kids access that, like iPads and stuff
Yeah,
like that?
it's on their computer, so each of them will have a
Their Chromebook,
license and they'll
yeah.
be able to.
Are they able to print or anything like that? Or just like, what about people that have problems processing
Yeah.
things online?
Right.
You know, it's like, it's just, it's a different thing.
So most of my textbooks for college are also virtual and I'm able to print them if
You're
I
able
need
to
them.
print, so.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess there's probably gonna be some, but I think it's
We're just getting
kind
used
of
to the fact
the
that
new
you're.
age of every, you know, kind of where we're at. And I think this will be the start of, I know there's others that are gonna be out there too with that too, and they try to explore a number of different ones. and we
That's a
try
good
to.
question on whose responsibility will accessibility be? I mean, we have to provide accessible learning,
Right,
and if all they offer is digital, then they should have to provide, that's a question. Do they have to provide an accessible digital thing? So, you know, I don't know.
and I think within the curriculum, there's probably actual books that they're reading with it in English, right?
to go along with it, but this is the actual textbook per se.
But they're still, okay. So I think you said this, but what 3 grades are we?
8th, 9th, and 10th. So they wanted to try to have some continuity within those grades, within the change, to not have such a separation.
Are the teachers okay with this?
Yeah, they were the ones who did all the exploring and
Well,
trying
they
to
want
find.
this.
Yes, well, I think they'd rather have it, but that was the big question. Can we find, they were like, there's nothing. We could not hardly find anything that would fit. That would be an actual text. A lot of them are not even offering hardcover text anymore.
So are they somewhat flexible in licensing numbers? I mean.
Yeah, so
you have it built in so that if you have kids when we don't get sacked in another.
Yeah, we went with the numbers, basically what we had within the classes right now. So if we had to add or that's a good question. I guess if we
And
dropped off a
we
little
paid
kid
you.
or something.
So you're paying per,
Yes,
Or-
so basically to have a license for each of those kids. So the numbers are a little different, by the grade per the cost.
But they were
So-
somewhat flexible, I mean, I don't know, and we pay the whole $11,000 up front.
Yep, that's for the 3-year. We could do a 2-year or a 3-year.
is this sort of common? That is an increase. I mean, you could have a textbook for 10 years at half the cost. Is this common across disciplines? Is this something we're gonna see?
Like I said, this is the first one where we're starting to get into.
Yeah,
And we
With
have a
some of
little
the-
bit in the elementary too, with our reading curriculum. That's an online purchase as well, and it's per student.
it would be interesting just to, as best you can, model what the difference in cost is gonna be. If that's all grades, all disciplines, and you're doubling the cost.
Mhm.
Does it go from 40 to $100,000? I mean, it could be, I don't know if it's possible to do that, but. We certainly know what we've been paying over X years for textbooks. But if, I have a relationship with one of those teachers, so if that's what she wants.
Yeah, this was all, that they had researched and looked into what would be best for them, what would work for them. That was the big discussion. Is there anything that we can find that's an actual text? And nope.
Really? I mean, it's not just this company, it's.
No, I mean,
What is
it's,
the company?
it's starting to come. I don't remember off the top of my head. Was it?
Houghton Mifflin.
Or
There's
no,
only
I don't
like
think it
3
was.
left.
Houghton.
It's only
I got the
3
quote
Just a lot of
right on
good
my
prick,
next, but
no
yeah,
problem.
there's very few left.
But we don't, usually if we
Um,
go to approve something like this, number one, we have an amount and some documentation on it. And then, to be honest, I would like to print out maybe an informational ahead of time, give it a chance to. Know about it, but
Well, I assume they need these for fall.
Yeah, for the fall. I mean, we could certainly wait and do it on the.
no, I don't know that it's gonna help a lot other than just
Do
a
they,
little more information.
back in the dark ages when I was still teaching, things were already trending this direction, but you could, instead of buying an entire textbook, you could order chapters
Chapters,
at
yeah.
a much lesser
But about the
cost.
time I retired, that was very popular. You could
Yeah.
pick which chapters you wanted, at least the college level textbooks, so.
Yeah, maybe it's not same here, but is that possible? Not to pinch pennies. here,
Yeah,
but-
I don't know for sure on that one, Scott. I mean, I think it would be tough to try to. In this cost, to be honest, this is the bare. This is
I
the bare,
figured they would, yeah,
this
no,
is the
that-
bare minimum. I mean, the initial where they have all the support on this and the support on that, that amount was, let's just say it was a lot more than this amount.
Yeah.
This is amount
I
for the
totally
online
trust our staff
licenses
that
and,
They got it down.
yeah, we really,
Absolutely.
we had some pretty good discussion and Sarah and Erica spent a good amount of time really trying to look through this here the last couple months and, really try to come where it's at. And yeah, we just, typically, I think in the past textbooks have been, but just with the amount and the change,
I
we
find it
wanted.
interesting that it's English textbooks, not, apologies to any English teacher out there, but I'm trying to remember exactly what was in the English textbooks, not, not thinking literature, which I
Right.
think more about when I think about English when we get to about 10th grade. Doesn't seem like things that change from year to year. You still conjugate a verb the same way. You still, I can see if it was like even social studies, where current things change so much or anything
Mhm.
like IT related, and that kind of thing, but an English textbook is kind of like basic accounting, sorry, basic accounting, a debit is a debit, it doesn't, it's gonna change. You know, so I think it's interesting that the textbook, people pick that kind of thing first, because where's the place they're gonna make the most money? On the one that you now have to replace every 3 years, which wasn't gonna change for 10, and you could get 10 years worth of use,
Yeah,
but that's just an editorial.
and the other thing they're imposing with this transition to digital, if you bought a hard copy textbook, if budgets are tight, you could carry it over.
Yeah.
It could be a
Yeah, you can
14-year-old
say-
textbook, and here they're sticking you with 3 years.
Yeah, it's, there's no doubt,
And that's
they're,
it, yeah.
they're sticking you with a
This stuff really aggravates me.
new
I mean,
element of
they have no
cost.
printing costs, they have no shipping costs, their costs, I would think, are less, and they're essentially doubling, tripling the price for school districts.
Mm-hmm. Yep, for sure. Um,
Yeah, maybe we need to look around and see if they're really, I mean, if there is not print or other.
Yeah, I can go back.
I'm not saying to turn this one down, I'm just.
We can go back and look more, but yeah, we had pretty good conversation on what's available and
Is
that
this being
was,
bought out of this year's budget, next year's budget? ESSER
that's what we're
funds?
gonna try to do, is to get it out of this year's on this one.
Get it into this year's. budget.
Yes, to take it out of this year's.
Okay.
Um,
We'll hear more about budget. But I take it it's there, or you can ask.
Yeah.
Well, I have no doubt they did an exhaustive
Yeah,
search, and I don't have a problem with this. It would be interesting to, if we could cobble numbers together to see, here's where our school-wide, our
mhm.
book costs
and not
were.
that you have to use numbers to convince us to do it, it's more just a.
It's a budgetary
Yeah.
thing, like if that's eating up more of our budget, I mean, it's certainly tens of thousands of dollars more across the school, even
Yeah, I mean,
Think
I'm
about if
just,
we had to do this for English, social studies,
Yeah,
right.
science,
in elementary school. Yeah.
especially elementary school too, I mean, Dick and Jane.
You know, I mean, I have no problem with this, I'm not gonna be a stick in the mud. But with my very limited IT technical experience, I wonder if teachers couldn't, if they had a lesson on conjugating verbs, if they couldn't just put a YouTube video up there. I mean, there is so much cool stuff.
And I totally.
I think
agree with
there is, but I think if you go home and tell your wife and what she's gonna need to
And I
do,
think you're
not
right.
have any resources on how things are gonna work.
To it, Aaron. There's alignment with standards in
Right.
the state, there's your
Right.
standardized tests. And I'm sure our teachers could put together a wonderful, thing that would take a lot of time and stuff, but I'm sure they could do a great job at that.
Yeah.
But would they catch all the standards? Would we be able to defend that we're hitting the standards when we did it ourselves versus?
Right, and there's
So I think
definitely
there's
a
lot of pieces.
A lot of that happens when
We
they
have to-
read certain books or doing different things,
Yeah.
but, you know, like Janet said, the general basis of it and making sure that everything is covered and where it's at,
Yeah,
But I
that's kind of
totally
where it's
agree with
at.
you. They got us.
I know, it's just, I don't like that
And I don't like
possession
it.
work
Yeah,
into
yeah.
the slave.
Yeah, and like I said, we can try to explore more,
No,
but I just, want everybody to be aware because it's kind of the new, like Kim said, we've had at the elementary, it's gonna probably start to come more as we look at some
So
of
we're
these
also
new-
gonna need to have other.
textbooks
ones
to
looking
get.
at this, and it's gonna be more crucial to have, I know we used to have, and you probably still do, like a rotational. You know, so we're getting new textbooks from one area, another, and kind of go around. And it's certainly gonna become much more important with these numbers being like
Do
this.
a review.
And
Right.
that these people are looking, their staff are looking ahead and planning for how they're gonna handle it. I'd love to see one of the departments be able to try what Scott described, but
well,
I'm not
you
sure.
can almost,
A lot of them do, I mean, there's certainly
And there's still probably.
an element of
all
that.
that stuff anyway.
you can almost do just some quick math. Say, so it's gonna be $34,000 for 9 years.
Yep.
For these 3 grades of English, if you had to buy $70 textbooks for 75 kids, say 3 classes of 25, that's from $5,000 every 9 years to
Mhm.
33,000. You're adding, just say $25,000 per discipline across grades. This could be $200,000 more amortized across multiple budgets.
Right.
That's not inconsequential, right?
No, yeah, I mean, if you just, like you said, you put 75 or you put $100 on a book. That you get 8th, 9th, and 10th and lasts a good chunk of years, yes, it's definitely a different change. Yeah, I think it's something we can all look at and think, this stinks, they've really got you, I just don't know what the
So-
other answer
So
is.
here's the thought. And you see this at the university a lot. Let's say we give Eric Weigel. If we've gotta go digital with the social science books, $15,000 in summer pay over 3 years, to write his own damn textbook. And then adopt it for free.
There's a lot to it to try to meet all the
Yeah.
standards and do
Yeah,
everything and to
that
pull
was
everything in it. And then the other part that, I don't know what thing, I can only use the social studies that the license that we buy for 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade because I've used it. And I did my own 5th grade social studies curriculum, the stuff that I got from Colonial Williamsburg for 5 or 6 years. And the stuff that was online and the activities that they had put together were better than what I did. And I thought some of the stuff that I came up with was pretty cool. It's not the same. It's more in-depth. It forces kids to think on a deeper level. It does more group work. It does more things than Eric, and Eric's as smart as there is. It's not the same thing. I mean, we're paying that money because we're trying to find a curriculum that is going to push our kids. And I'm sure that's what the ladies in socials in English did, is to find the things that they need to give them the best chance. And that's a great idea, Scott. It would never be the same. It would never be as good. And it wouldn't meet all the things. And they're like the social studies things, the videos that, like the embedded links for videos, the embedded links for different resources. And it was kind of fun because some of the stuff they actually had on there was stuff that I had actually got from Colonial Williamsburg, which is pretty neat stuff. But I would never find that on my own. It wouldn't be as good.
Well, we don't wanna sacrifice quality. So
And
this
it would
may,
be tailored for the learners, especially kids,
Yeah.
how you have to present things to kids and stuff have changed. And we might have teachers in some areas that could actually do a semi-good job at least, but what about a new teacher? I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah.
a lot of staff are. I totally agree with what you're saying too, I feel the same way. I also
Thank you.
see that other end of it. However, that just means we need to plan, we need to budget, we need to.
yeah. But as we go on and this becomes more, you see more of this,
We
Aaron.
need to keep track of these things and let our legislatures know that.
Right, yeah,
The
this is
textbook things that used to
how we're
run,
getting stuck.
whatever number, you had good handle on numbers there are now.
Yep.
Literally, how many times as much?
Yeah, just say a quick look at this could,
It-
$250,000 more a year for digital books. I don't know, but.
It's not just education, I mean, Kathy on the spot over there, but I mean, even the library things where, you would think they could have. It would be cheaper to have a license for a Kindle, a Kindle book or an online book. Not so much, and they very well they still pay probably more there too, so,
And it's an electronic copy, it's not like,
yeah,
just, well, like you said, it's a license that you can use it for this amount of time.
yeah.
Is there any dialogue with these people? Like, can you tell the publisher, look, 3 years is.
Sure, I can call them up. I would guess they've probably heard it before. I mean, I don't imagine, as I look at this, and again, this is really kind of the first time at any new
However-
level for us. There's probably been many other school boards who've gone through this exact discussion, like, this is unbelievable, how we're, but like Andy said, we're down to a few major companies, and it's like everything else, well, sorry. This is
Well, I
what,
just had two thoughts. One would be, if everybody is gonna be facing this, Jamie Nutter at CISA has done a wonderful job with some of the software and stuff of getting big package prices.
Mhm.
The problem is we'd have to be able to agree with a certain number of other schools to make it worth his time to try to negotiate, because we aren't gonna, like you say, I can call them up, I love it. But we aren't gonna be able to negotiate, but somebody like a CISA or maybe a statewide CISA group even, maybe could negotiate for something. I mean, people were surprised he did it with some of the online platforms during the pandemic and stuff. I mean, people joined that certainty just to have whatever, I forget what it was, Schoology. So, and I don't know if it'd be anything like that, but it would certainly be worth sticking a bug in his ear, because he also knows a lot more overall, I think, about what schools might be facing with this, so that's one.
Yeah, good
My
thought.
other thought was, what's the state of Texas doing since they buy Texas?
That's what I was gonna say, if Texas called, they might listen, but I don't know. They're gonna listen to Aaron, sorry, Aaron.
Well, it's a good idea. I mean, you're right, other school
I mean,
districts are
it's the only
probably
practical thing I can
facing the
think
same
of,
thing.
you know.
I'm getting too old to be on the school board. Digital textbooks just isn't that, that's not education.
Oh,
You need the book. All right, I've
well, we gotta budget
whined,
for more paper then.
like so many things in my life, I whined and I cried, now I'm gonna do what my wife wanted. Any other questions, thoughts, but you know, a good discussion, I think the additional cost is something we've got to keep an eye on.
Mhm.
And maybe down the road, think about some collaborative back pressure. Entertain a motion? No. Yes.
Yeah, he's actually-
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Motion by Rich, second by Isaac to approve the purchase of the English textbooks.
Isaac Wallace,
Yes.
Rich James,
Yes.
Bo Schrader,
Yes.
Janet Mathis.
Yes,
Earl Wallace.
Yes.
Scott Walter.
Yes. Moving on to the informational agenda tonight, first discussion item, the 24-25 board committee assignments, and I think all the responses I got, everybody was okay. Since we rejiggered things partway through this past year, just keeping the committees the same for the upcoming year. So we will move on then to the AGR report.
It's in your packet. The blue progress is May, couple of things that jumped out. What we wanna do is have as many low risk as low as possible, and in just about every grade, that low risk went down, and I think that's a testament to the win time that we put in at the end of the day, and the time that Sherry and Tracy spent, and the interventionist, Sherry obviously being the interventionist. Kindergarten's a tad bit misleading, because I dug into the numbers a little bit, and I think the cutoff might be, the number might be wrong, but I know the example's right. The cutoff was 41 to be out of low risk, and I think we had 2 40s and a 39.
oh my,
Oh,
Amy's like, can I retest them? I'm like, it doesn't matter. We know what they are.
understand that. We
Yeah,
talked
I mean, we're
about
right
that,
there,
yeah.
so. And when I look back at last year's group, because I was just curious, because in math, or not math, in reading this year, we used Tracy differently with the program that she's using to teach reading, and we use that with everybody in kindergarten. And probably not smart enough to explain it. If you look at the amount of growth this year compared to last year, for everybody, there was more growth this year than last year. So if it was like 3 or 4 points last year was kind of what they went up, and this year it's more like 8 or 9. So I think we did a really good job on it. The first grade, there are, as Katie and I have talked monthly, there's a bunch of kids in that group that are very concerning. And they still made, I mean, they went from 72% of the kids were high risk down to 46, down to 41. Remember how I talked about the 5th grade this year has a whole bunch of kids? First grade might look a lot like that next year, and the second grade and I have already talked. They're all gonna be gone for maternity leave at some point, but this, while they're here, we're gonna add a second reading time. In the end of the day, I'm not exactly sure how that's gonna look, to try to see if we can get ahead of that a little bit before they get in too old. But that might be a group that we're always gonna kind of have to keep our eye on. Because we've spent a lot of time talking about them already. But overall, 3rd grade, the math, we had nobody in high risk. Should say not, yeah. 10% low risk. I was really proud of the staff and what they did and the kids. That's why, and one of your things that you guys okayed today was, root beer and ice cream. So I treated everybody because they all went up on their testing. So I might have carpal tunnel from scooping ice cream, but we had root beer flows to 1st through 5th grade. But, anything else I left out? Nope, that's the highlights. But yeah, kindergarten, a couple of those kids were really close. 1st grade we're a little worried about, but they actually moved up a lot. And a lot of that has to do with Tracy, Taylor, and Sherry. And then you guys, the board putting in, supporting the interventionist, I think has had a huge effect. So huge positive effect. So any questions? Now we'll just see if it pays off in the state test, which we'll get in August or July.
So we're seeing the progress throughout the year, in most of these grades that we wanna see, but generally still, the Fast Bridge performance objectives, 10%, 80%.
Yep.
What's the implication of falling short there? Is that just sort of an arbitrary benchmark, or is that a statewide average, or where is that?
That's just kind of what we picked, isn't it? I took out last year's AGI report, so.
Oh, right, that is, the Fast Bridge kind of established those as the
Oh.
guide, as the
Yep.
baselines and the guides.
But with no data behind it on why.
No,
that
there
is.
is data behind
Okay,
it, and it's in how they did, recurring assessments to narrow it down to understand where students had to perform to be proficient, later
On the
on.
state test.
Okay, so it's no comparison to overall averages or mean scores and stuff like that. It's somebody determining this is the
It's-
proficiency you need.
Yeah.
Everybody needs to go there, so at least you're.
Yeah,
not shooting
if you're
a moving
performing
target.
here, then you have indicated that is a success rate for later.
On the state test. That's how I understood it, that if we can get everybody below, we only have. We have less than 10% of our kids at high risk on the
We should-
Fast Bridge on the state test, we should look really good.
Right.
If everybody tries their hardest on the state test and everybody has a good night's sleep and
Right,
nobody
and the
interrupts.
bottom line is, yeah, they're proficient readers, they can comprehend what they read and they'll be prepared for the next step.
And I guess something, it didn't escape me that you mentioned the interventionists as being important in driving these improved scores, right? So they're spending time with the kids that need
Yes.
to.
Well, we meet, and the first Thursday of the month, Katie and I and Taylor and Sherry and Tracy all sit down. And any data that Tracy's been collecting or Sherry, and then I have a list of what I call it, can't think of what the name of the folder is on, but it's academics. And then we look at those kids who are below that 10%. I just go off the Fast Bridge and where they go, and then we just go through it and, okay, let's say, make up a name, Montana is going to Tracy. So Montana is actually going to Tracy and Taylor, and Taylor has this kid and making sure that everybody who is struggling is getting at least one support, if not two, during wind time throughout the day.
Yeah, I really compliment you guys on that. I know that goes on, and I think that's especially maybe great for a small school that somebody is actually looking at these individual kids
Yep.
and who needs help. And I don't think that happens everywhere. I'm
Yep.
very glad that's how it happens here.
Is there? No, I'm not even gonna ask.
I might be able to answer,
Well, is there,
might not.
we talk a lot about our high proportion of socially, economically challenged kids. Is there the students who are starting out in these early grades, doing relatively anyway poorly on the exam? Is there a commonality that might lend itself to addressing through budgets or staffing or whatever? Or maybe we're already
I think
doing
we're
it
doing that.
with the
I mean, with the
intervention.
interventionist and even the books for breakfast and, you know, there's a lot of stuff I think about, yeah, could we do a parent outreach thing for, well, pre-K is doing that. I mean, all of those things, trying to get those kids, there's research shows that there's so many things that happen before they ever get to our door.
Yeah.
When they're in first grade, second grade, third grade, do they get read to, you know, what's their nutrition like when they're little, those kinds of things that we have no control over. And there's a way in FastBridge, not even in FastBridge, on the state stuff, you can break it down from the state test of where your kids are based on socioeconomic factors. And that's helpful, and to me, the FastBridge is more important for the simple fact that we get it, we're not waiting to get it in July, it's actionable, we can do it, you know, we can do it all the time. We can, I don't wanna say, I still haven't found a way with FastBridge to pinpoint our instruction, but it shows us which kids need help, and then that Tracy and Taylor and Sherry are able to pinpoint. I mean, Sherry has done a lot of work, so has Tracy, so has Taylor, to pinpoint what skills those kids are missing and then try to remediate them.
It's great.
So we're trying. I think it's I don't think it's in the right direction. I think we've made a lot of changes that are helping kids.
Hey, very good, thanks, Andy. Item 3, door locks for classrooms. We mentioned this last month.
Yeah, and this is just in efforts to kind of continue to build our understanding and knowledge behind door locks, and their purpose, affordability. So this is just really informational driven until we can make really, an informed decision about what's best for Kickapoo. Conversations with Willie Raisler, have been driving this to look at it, and try to see how and when it could fit for Kickapoo. So basically, just a resource right now for keeping you on board with me as I learn more, until we can make that informed decision. So no decisions to make, just basic information for you. I think he's referenced in saying, you know, that we're one of the few schools who do not have this specific safety strategy. So that's why I'm kind of looking at it more, just so that we can say we've really reviewed every avenue, and are making decisions that are best for our students here.
So we're $200 to $300 per door, plus
Yeah.
labor. Yeah.
And Stephen Westby said there are grants, so like this summer, I will spend some time seeking and seeing how grants can maybe support this effort, if this is a direction that we choose to go. I think the overall benefit really is that should anything happen where there's an intruder, it allows, it gives time. And since we are in Viola and law enforcement would come most likely from Broqua, they're looking that time factor as being valuable.
Yeah. So, do our classroom doors open into the room or out into the hall? Out into the hall. Okay. All right, so no action tonight.
No, we'll just continue the conversation and understanding there.
Item 4 then, sorry, anybody else have questions? Item 4 then, the winter co-op sports report.
And this is specific then, I mean, it's the entire co-op sports report, but this one specific to the winter, which is the wrestling information. Gives the number of students and the report between Lafarge and Kickapoo. And Allison is working with Lafarge to get payment.
Yes, I have all of our numbers for our spring sports. I'm just waiting for Mr. Peterson to review it before I can send it off to Lafarge and get their numbers. I'm hoping to get a response a little quicker than what the winter one took. Yes, because I originally sent this to Lafarge before our last board meeting. And it took a little bit to get back. So I'm hoping to get the next one back and then receive payment, because thus far they haven't paid for any
I'd
of
like
the
to see,
shared
I was gonna
expenses.
ask, but we have the payments by the end of the month, because I'd like to see them have to pay in the year.
And-
But maybe that's unrealistic, but.
Well,
Do
in
we-
years past, we typically do get our, like, once we finalize the fall expenses, they send the check for the fall expenses. So we typically get 3 checks in a year. But I think Megan is taking on more of those responsibilities, so I think she just needs a reminder that we need this payment, and I am gonna tell her that we would like this before the end of June, so we can get it on our books and not have to mark it down as a receivable.
And we have gotten the $5,000 a year payment?
That all comes with that spring payment.
Okay.
Mhm.
So,
So,
okay, so this, they pay it after the fact,
yes, yep,
okay. Other than it would cause them a double, actually prefer to see that at the beginning of the year, because we have to expend the money. I mean, that's not a, we're waiting to see what you spend, that's an acknowledgement that, yes, there are, I mean, when. we
That's
put it
true.
in.
Those are,
But, you know, then they have to hit them up with a double payment a year, I guess.
on the bottom left, the high school track. Shouldn't that be Lafarge's Kickapoo 5,000, or why do we?
Oh, that one's not.
that one's not
That was
done
not
yet.
done.
They don't
That's not
actually
done.
have the numbers, so what you're seeing down below is just what happens with.
Yeah, those bottom 2 boxes are both the spring sports, those aren't done, that's not on this report.
Oh, so don't know
That,
what to-
I'm hoping that everything's in and I can show the spring one in July.
Okay.
Have we pursued the joint board meeting anymore, or are people still interested in? it?
Yep, and Lafarge is interested, so
We-
Megan and I are getting together. Tomorrow we have a large meeting with Baroqua Westby, Lafarge and myself to plan our August in service. So then Megan and I are going to meet at that point as well to hopefully this summer, I think was.
That's what I was gonna say, maybe could we get one in the summer? We used to, didn't Earl used to do one like in early August or?
Yeah.
something?
So August is a preferred.
No, like even
Or
July.
July,
would be fine.
August
I mean,
is
I
either-
used to-
Whatever
we
they
used to
get.
try to, we used to
Okay.
make one of the meetings, that might have been played a lot.
Kind of ordinance too.
I just remember that one year it was about the time cross country was getting started, because that was the year we only had like 1 or 2 runners and, yeah. Oh, good.
Yeah, so we'll do that tomorrow.
And then the last item on the informational agenda or the discussion items, the 24-25 preliminary budget.
It's a projected preliminary budget. The preliminary budget will come next month. But I wanted to kind of give you guys something to look at, give you some idea of what we're anticipating. We do not have our July 1st aid estimate yet from DPI. We also obviously don't know for sure what our third Friday count's gonna be. We don't have our property valuations, but we do have an estimate from the Department of Revenue on that. They give us one in May. Obviously that could change. We also don't know if we had an increase or a decrease in the number of voucher students in our district as of yet. Or if any of the ones that were in the K-8 leveled up into the high school, which is a more costly group. So that's one thing. I just based everything on the 11 kiddos that we figured were out there as of this current year, being in the same categories as they were last year with no additions or deletions. We haven't finished up our first year of our self-funded health insurance yet. So that's, something that can make a big difference.
Do you know how far off that would be? Because I know there's like run out periods and all that kind of stuff, so, I mean, are we looking at maybe September before we even have a good
It'll
first
probably,
year final?
it'll
from-
probably be the end of September from what I've heard from the insurance, what
Okay,
we've
I
heard from the
wondered.
insurance center. Yep.
Well, that's good timing in terms of the annual
Yeah,
meeting.
that's, would be great if they could have it by then, so we really know.
So there are a lot of things that we don't know, but, tried to bring it just as close as we could, you know, we tried to estimate our students as well as we could, use the Baird model. To run these as close as we could. So the first section on the projection is our Fund 10, our general fund, which is our main general operations. I'll go just down line by line to help refamiliarize what everything is. Under revenues and financing sources, that transfers in source 100, that $4,000 is indirect costs that we can get on IDEA if we choose to. Local sources, source 200, those would be our tax levy dollars. District payments, majority of that would be our open enrollment in money that comes in. Intermediate sources, that's a small amount, that's our Carl Perkins money. State sources, source 600, that's our general aid from the state, our equalization aid, transportation aid, things of that nature, all our money that comes from the state for a variety of things, for pupil aid. Federal sources, that is our title money, and for now, our ESSER money. I'm estimating we're gonna have roughly 118 or so to expend between July and September in ESSER money. 118,000 as of right now. All other sources, that would be like insurance dividends and miscellaneous revenues, maybe from selling a bus, things of that nature. Under expenditures, instruction is pretty straightforward, that is teachers and subs. Support services, that would be your admin, your bus drivers, custodians, school psych, office workers. Non-program transactions, that's where you would find like our payments out to other schools for open enrollment out students. Those are pretty much the big expenditures on Fund 10. Does anybody have any questions before I move on to the other funds?
And the additional referendum money would be in local sources, and that's why that jumped. what it
Correct.
did? Okay.
Correct. That's part of why it jumped. Another reason would be the increase in property valuation.
Right.
And the May estimate.
And the decrease in federal, that's just the lapsing ESSER funds
Correct.
mostly.
Yes. Special projects funds, those are Fund 21 and Fund 27. Fund 21 is like gifts, that's where our Griffin money resides. And then Fund 27 is our special education fund. That is the fund that always has to be zeroed out at the end of the year. So if we have more expense there, then we have revenues coming in, we have to make a transfer from Fund 10 to Fund 27. And if you look up above in Fund 10, that is part of why that non-program transactions, that last expense line is so large in Fund 10. Is because that is, part of that expense is what is making part of the revenue in the special projects fund. It's that transfer from Fund 10 to Fund 27 to zero Fund 27 out at the end of the year. Projections right now are showing us transferring approximately $750,000 next year from Fund 10 to Fund 27. Hopefully that will change, but that's what it's looking like right now. We've just had such increased costs in Fund 27.
And that's Beckett.
Yeah.
But aren't we supposed to get higher aid on that or additional aid for that? Or is
They-
that?
That's one area they're lacking.
Mhm. They did bump up, the state did bump up what they reimbursed us at a year or two ago, but they increased it by like 2%.
Oh,
It's only like 33%.
did we send them a thank you card?
No, we did not. No, we did not.
Wrapping in a brick.
And not that it was a huge deal, but every little
That's
tiny
kind of a
amount.
huge deal. yeah.
No, going to our federal grants.
Oh,
It's not a huge deal, but it kind of is because every penny counts. Our IDEA allocation estimates came in a little lower this year than they were last year. So I think we're gonna lose a little on our federal money also. Unfortunately, but we are seeing increased costs in our spec area, so.
So that's, so we're gonna be brainstorming how to address that, and like we talked at the committee meeting, maybe that's a communication stream the Legislative Affairs Committee could pick up and sort of advocate for changing the model, but also some ideas like an in-house Cooley Connections alternative to the costly.
Yeah, because that's starting to take a pretty good percentage of the general operating budget. It was like an 8% increase year over year, a couple of years ago, then it went to like 10, but now this projection is more like a 20% increase over last year, which is an awful big increase in the
So-
transfer amount.
And why? Because we're getting less aid, or are our costs and number of students we have to serve that much more?
Because
That,
the need.
so we feel more of the lack of aid because we have bigger percentage of our money there. So,
Okay, and
right.
this is a big budget issue, right? So I'll ask maybe a sensitive question. Of those students who are needing special accommodations and costing money, how many are open enrolled? In any idea?
Not a clue,
Because,
it's not my department.
I mean, we may be forced. It's touchy, right? Because you want to help all kids, but if the cost of helping a child who's from out of the district exceeds the money that comes from the state to service them budgetarily, we're not on the hook for those services, right? Or are we?
They go back to
Katie
their
could probably
residence.
Can we
explain
ask
that a little bit.
I don't know if
Maybe
I'm allowed to
put
speak as a
some input.
visitor and not a attendee. or-
If we recognize you, you certainly are.
So if we have a student that is open enrolled in our district and we find that their need exceeds the capacity to provide those services in-house, then we would usually revoke their open enrollment.
Okay,
So the students that we have high costs for, we would send back to their resident district so that we wouldn't be fiscally responsible for that high cost.
we're not.
But likewise, if one of ours was somewhere else, most likely that other district would.
Correct. So if our student was, if our resident was in a non-resident district and that happened to us, then they would return to us as well.
Wow, which
And
is
that's-
we would have, yeah.
Yes, so it goes both ways.
Yeah,
That was a good question.
yeah, I mean, a lot of these concerns sadly are driven budgetarily, but
Well, and we're not allowed as a resident legally from federal law, we're not allowed to say we can't provide that because we don't have the money. That's illegal for us to do. So we have to figure it out and use whatever resources we have to meet the student with disabilities needs.
sure.
So it's
But
like
we
the
don't have a
conundrum.
certain amount of money, so we can
Correct.
set our limit on how many we can serve and,
Correct.
that works, so.
Yep.
But we can't control how many move into the district and,
That's correct. Right, and unfortunately can't, always plan for, especially if a student is extremely high cost. A lot of times, if another district is aware that's happening, they'll reach out and say, hey, you might be incurring this high cost, so we can kind of plan, but, a lot of times it's just a surprise. And we have to figure it out, and we do, but it comes at a high cost.
Does it? And we don't have to, well, it's an important issue, so I'll ask. So the students that we have to provide accommodations for, maybe alternative educational options. And you probably don't know the percent, but in my mind, well, I guess we're obligated in any sense, but there's a difference between a student who has a learning disability, a developmental disability, and a student who's a persistent disciplinary problem, where we've decided they can't function without impacting others' education. I'm fully supportive of whatever has to be done for this group, but less for this group, right? I don't know if we're legally bound in any case to pay for those alternative educational options, but
Sure. It's similar to, well, I shouldn't say similar, but being a rural district, kind of locked into what services are available to support the students that we're not able to meet their need within house, which is why we're looking, again, I don't know how much I'm allowed to speak to a lot of these issues, being a guest at a board meeting, and not speaking on behalf of my position. But we are looking into alternative ways to provide these services that are more cost effective and looking with other schools to collaborate to do something more locally. Because our cost is not only paying a daily rate for students to attend these other programs that are far away, but it's transportation, nothing is close to us. So we're paying mileage and wear and tear on vehicles and our drivers, and we try to be consistent with aligning routes and grouping kids together, but sometimes we're running, different routes to different places. So we're very mindful of trying to be fiscally responsible to meet these
And
students.
it's our
needs
cost
that
of
we're-
transportation, but it's also that taxing, that child having to commute to lacrosse
Yep, it's a long
every
ways for
day. I
our little
mean,
people.
is,
2 hours in a car.
yeah,
It's a lot.
Yeah.
that could be being used for education, and that's just, how
Right,
much
so part of our
effective
summer
when they get
discussion
there.
is looking at, can we be more creative and think outside the box and provide some of these services closer to home? But again, too, of that is, hiring extra staff, finding a location, overhead costs, insurance, providing food to our students, making sure our staff is appropriately changed. So is it really going to be cost savings? We'd like to think so because of and especially with time being important too. So all of those things are things that Aaron and Andy and Kim and Angie and myself are looking at really seriously, just because we are responsible for meeting the needs of all of our students, and what's the best way to do that, both fiscally and morally, and with what resources.
Something we'll be wrestling with, but again, I'll just say that, all these discussions and worries that every school district, public school district has are due to the lack of state funding. So there's a role for that legislative affairs committee and we had talked about that earlier tonight, so.
And I think was it the high cost aid that you were talking about? So any students that cost over $30,000, we had traditionally gotten, was like 27 or 28% return on that. And I thought they bumped it up to like 29% or 30. Yeah, that was
But that was
thank you
in
for
addition
2%.
to the regular aid that we'd get, right?
Yeah, we get
Regular
special
special
education
education,
aids, on all spec ed costs, not just the high costs.
Yes,
Okay.
yep.
Well, on the aidable costs,
Yes,
not on the ones that are covered by like IDA.
correct.
Good discussion, but I've lost track of where we.
Okay, I'll take you back. We're on debt service fund. So our debt service funds are funds 38 and 39. 38 being our non-referendum debt. That is our energy efficiency bonds, and fund 39 being our referendum approved debt, which is our pool loan. So really the only thing in there is we levy for what we owe on the bonds for the upcoming year and what we owe for the pool loan in the upcoming year. And then the expenditure is the payments. So it's pretty cut and dried. And then capital projects fund, those would be funds 46 and 49. We don't currently have anything in 49. Fund 46 is where we have money sitting, waiting, is our capital improvements. There's money sitting there, that fund balance you see there is waiting for the next big project. If we have money left over, a budgeted money left over at the end of a fiscal year, we can transfer it into that fund to go for a future project. And then that expenditure, that transfer is considered an expenditure and we are aided on it in the following year.
Yeah, we used to have to try to make sure we spent everything one way or another, because otherwise you don't get aid because you didn't spend it. So Fund 46 helps us with that. Not only does it let us save ahead, so we when we used a lot of it for the pool there, but it also, like she said, we get aid on it because it's considered an expense.
Along those lines, the Buildings and Grounds Committee, we had talked a few meetings ago about developing a facilities plan, like 3 or 5 year. We've got the roof coming up and repaving and we need this much. Is that moving or is it?
Yes, actually, we were waiting on, I forget what her name is, to come and give us an overview of where we're at with our roof. She's emailed and she has us on her schedule, but she hasn't made it yet. And then working to put together kind of a strategic plan on things that we're looking at that need to be done and funds that would be available. So all of it's starting to come together.
It is really good to look as far ahead, and at least the physical plant thing is a lot easier to look further ahead on than some of the other
Yeah.
things where it depends on enrollment and things.
Right, right.
You can't project, so.
It is nice just to have that balance sitting there because there are those
Yeah,
unexpected
something
things, like furnace, whatever.
So the next section is our food service fund, that's our fund 50. Much like the special education fund, that fund has to maintain, well, it's not exactly like special education, it doesn't have to balance to zero, but it cannot go negative. So if it is negative at the end of the year, we have to make a transfer from fund 10 to zero it out. We have not had that problem for a long time. One thing we have been doing for the last couple of years is we've had quite a surplus because of the way we were reimbursed during the pandemic years. And so it's allowed us to do some things for the food service area, like buy a rapid chiller and some tables and do some work in the kitchen, you know, a new floor that needed, things of that nature. Now that fund,
Oh, I'm sorry.
oh, no, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, so do we have something major planned or something? Because
Not that I'm aware of, but
we're dropping the fund balance.
yep, and that was my point. I think we're getting that fund balance to a point where we want to just be cautious and very
Yeah.
thoughtful about anything that we do in that area now,
Yeah.
in order to maintain that cushion. So, I mean, it's still in good shape, but it's not as comfortable as it
Relatively good
used to
shape,
be.
but yeah,
Yeah.
to me, that's a lot to get off here.
So I'm glad you went there because that's what I was thinking as well. The next section down is our community service fund, that's our fund 80. So we help support the track club with that every year. And we also have revenues and expenses running through there with regard to the pool.
Yeah.
As you can see, the fund balance there is dropping. I ran a quick report today, just to take a quick peek at where year-to-date activity has been there with revenues and expenses. And right now, we're running a slim profit of $980 in Fund 80 for the year, but we haven't finished paying out our expenses. Because one of the main expenses that we have there is the pool supervisor salary and benefits. And there's still 5 more payments to be made on that, because we have 5 more payrolls to go yet for our accelerated summer payrolls. So just something I wanted to have on your radar is that looking forward, not this year, but possibly next year, if we don't make a change or if we don't see increased revenues there, we're either probably gonna have to move the pool supervisor over and use Griffin funds or levy in Fund 80.
Yeah, that's what I say, but we have the right to levy Fund 80, and that's above the revenue cap.
Correct, so outside of the revenue limit.
I think we still need to be conservative and concerned about that expense, but I don't think we transfer it somewhere where it's one of the few things we can levy above that cap.
I just wanted to throw the options out there. Yep, it is something you can levy for outside of the revenue limit. And then community service fund, not community service fund, package and cooperative program fund, we don't do anything there. I don't even know why it's still there, it just is. But, anyway, overall, it's showing roughly a 16.65% increase in the levy from last year. Just with this projected preliminary. So I expect changes.
Shouldn't put you on the spot with this question, you said 16 point whatever?
16.6.
So when we were doing all the education for the referendum, how much did we project it was going to increase?
Oh my goodness, I do not.
I can't pull that number out of my head either.
I
just that
cannot
first year.
remember.
It doesn't sound too far off, but
It was up there.
That's right, we can check, I can check back at the materials too.
But, I know it was significant.
I can look back to it.
So part of the increase comes from using, just an increase in property values also. And the increase in expenditures.
But we had all those, like, our best guesses in the
Yep.
projections, and admittedly, they're.
Yep.
I don't wanna call them guesses, but we try to be,
Yeah,
I know,
we-
we try to be close, but we just don't.
Every week or month that goes by, you get a little closer with the projections. It just takes new information coming in and it just trickles
Well,
in
and one
as
of the
you go through
reasons
certain
I
ones.
wanna look at that is if we're increasing faster now than we had projected, then even though this is a recurring referendum, that amount of money doesn't last as long as we hoped it would, So I definitely wanna keep an eye on that we're staying within what we projected. And if that means trying to cut things when it really doesn't seem like we should have to.
I will say when I was modeling this out, because this was all being done in the model and in the Skyward and everything coming together and meshing up, so the model was matching what I budgeted in Skyward, which is what you're looking at here.
Well, that's good.
I under levied in the model. We weren't under levying when we were putting out our projections, so this percentage in my head should be less than what we were showing.
Like I said, I thought it was probably pretty reasonable, but we can look back at the materials and check it out, that's fine.
Does anybody have any questions on the information?
So the state
Janet,
rep-
I was looking at some old things, so I think we were projecting like 19.24%.
Oh, thanks, Rich.
Thank you.
Yep, so we're in good shape, yeah. You wanna be in good shape for your one.
Me too.
It's your best shot at having it. Very good. Thanks, Rich.
So as you're projecting in the first chunk there, the state sources, I'm really buoyed by this preschool class of 34 students or something. And as that's included in here, I assume, right? You were using the best guess, what our fall.
We did,
September will actually, right?
September, we won't know until September for sure where we're at. But yes, we removed our seniors, we brought in the anticipated 4K. Marla got the open enrollment numbers so that we could figure out how many open enrolled in and outs we were losing and bringing in. And how many of them were spec ed and how many were not, because that makes a difference in the funding. And so all those numbers went into the model just as closely as we know them to be right now. And we just won't know for sure till the end of September.
And every year, just cross our fingers for preschool classes of 35 or thereabouts.
Yeah.
That would be-
Or more.
And just one other thing, I was sitting here mulling. Looking at the debt we still have to pay off, you get to the end of the school year. You have an additional funds, I'm not a budget person, so look cross-eyed at me like I don't know what I'm talking about, because I don't. But you have money left over. That can go into Fund 10, right, rainy day sort of thing, or not?
So if you have money left over, you can transfer it to your Fund 46. Because that's the best thing to do with it, because then you get aided on it in the next year. Plus you're building that fund to do big major projects with. If you just leave it sitting in Fund 10, it increases your fund balance, but you're not aided on it in the future. And if you have a healthy fund balance, it's really not necessary. If our fund balance was like 8%, yes, I would say leave money there.
Yeah, I wasn't suggesting we leave it in Fund 10. I just sort of the options. But what I was thinking is Fund 46 to plan for those capital projects that we see down the road or pay off the debt. In my mind, as we get to the end of the year, we could pay off the pool debt sooner.
Yeah, and that would be.
And there's a trade-off there, right? Like, if we know, that this makes that, facilities plan really important, right? Because then you can make the best decisions. You could say, we got $250,000 here at the end of the year. We don't have any big projects for 3 years. Let's pay off the pool. Whereas you have $250,000, oh, we gotta replace the roof next year, sorry. You know what I mean? I'm just I was looking at that and
And I think
thinking
we've
that,
talked about that in the past, that, yeah, we have an ambitious plan for paying off the pool, and that's a really good point.
yeah,
If we get, when you guys just put buildings and grounds things, but once we get some kind of facilities, things like that, so we kind of know what we're looking at there.
but that's kind of what I was.
Because
getting
yes, we lose aid, but then we're not paying interest, and we've got that off,
But can,
because if another referendum has to be done down the road, it'd be good to have some of that.
But the flip side is how good of an interest rate do we have in our pool?
Right, and I don't know,
Interest
but
rates in the future.
Right now, it's,
I would
and it
not
wasn't
be
bonded for,
anxious.
so.
it's
Yeah.
a very
Yeah,
low,
You're right.
another
very low
factor.
interest rate in the pool.
You may never see that again.
And that's right, and you know, the state aid amount may more than balance that out, yeah.
And I would say one danger with that would be that if something catastrophic did happen, like if the roof really did just fail and we didn't have the money then available to do anything, we don't have a
Then we have to go
resource.
borrow it, and it isn't gonna be at this really good interest rate.
Yeah,
We'd have to borrow, and would we be able to borrow enough money without having to go to referendum to ask for it? Because
We can always borrow it, the problem is it has to fit in the revenue cap.
Right, it has to fit in the revenue limit, so,
But right now, we're probably okay for a few years at least, but yeah, no, I totally agree with you, we're not talking about gutting something just to pay off one debt, but you know, there's a sort of a balance there, and I think like Scott said, the more we know about the needs on the other end, the better we can plan for it.
yeah, it was this.
and the pool has 3 years left? 3 or 4.
I might have a few more.
And then I believe it's a year after that, then that the bonds come off.
Yeah.
2030 is the last time.
Referendum debt wise, we are actually in really good shape when we were, you know,
Yeah,
getting ready to campaign for that referendum. I looked at that for other schools and stuff, because you can get on that referendum history site and kind of figure out what people have out there. We're really one of the lower ones. We just haven't run referendums, so, you know, we're in good shape.
any other comments or questions for Melissa? Last item, I think. Yep, the informational agenda, wellness policy update.
So every 3 years, we must have a committee to review our local wellness policy regarding physical exercises, water consumption, healthy food items offered, and nutrition-based instruction. The committee must have a classroom teacher, student, medical professional, parent, food service director, PE health teacher, and an administrator. So Marla is really taking the lead on this. Held a committee meeting, and from that information from our meeting, she will go online and fill out a report card. So just updating you on this policy where we are well aware and assessing the wellness of the things that we offer here at Kickapoo and encourage from our students and staff.
I appreciate you doing that, but my question is, so is there a Neola policy? I mean, 3 years ago when we did this, we weren't changed over to Neola, so is there a Neola policy? Because they sold, but they are customized to your state and all this stuff, so
Yes,
is
and
they, do
actually,
they not have one that we can pretty much, we're there, we shouldn't have to do very.
and that was the big thing, yes, our policy does, because I mean, we just reviewed it, was it like a year ago or so? And the only thing difference, they sent a checklist and stuff, so we had to meet all these things with our policy. The only thing we didn't meet was a non-discrimination statement actually on the policy, which I talked to the Neola guy,
Good.
and that will get on this next time around.
So yeah,
Thank
report
you.
that we upload to DPI. Consistent with our policy.
Thank you, Marla.
And that
Another
policy
interesting
is,
part of the job there.
Yeah.
that's one of those policies the committee, at least this committee member hates seeing, because it's like pages and pages.
Yeah, I
of
know, yeah.
Students must eat 3 raisins before 11.
It's a good thing we had it updated. I mean, but of course they just had some
Or-
changes. Yes.
Yes.
Any other comments on that? Thanks for the update, Kim, and thanks for your work on that, Marla. Moving on then, superintendent's report.
Okay, just to update you that we had 11 staff members present at the reunification training last week in Westby. News 8000 was there to capture the interactive role playing as we collaborated with other school districts. Learning the I love you guys protocols for reunifying students with parents after an event requiring reunification. I noted too that we celebrated Tina and Burdette. Also what we've already spoken on behalf of is this summer we are brainstorming solutions to respond to that growing population of students needing an alternative path and recognizing our special ed funding not keeping pace with our student needs. Tomorrow, going to a meeting to plan our August 27th in-service with Westby, Baroque, and Lafarge. And Melissa, Allison, and I have been getting together to go through and understand the budget. I'm transferring some more roles over to Allison. And I'm trying to streamline some of those different activities based on the data and tighten up some of our sports and different activity budgets with that team. And basically just shout out to our seniors, super proud of them, wish them well on their next steps into the future, and a huge shout out to all of our staff, surrounded by the hardest working individuals who are really vision oriented, and super proud to be a part of their team and very grateful for the trust in our community, allowing us the ability to continue with our mission with our successful referendum. So that's all I have to this evening.
Thank you, Kim. Principal reports.
Okay.
Behaviors, the data we were collecting on the behaviors in the elementary that showed improvement from the beginning of the year to the end. The reading class that all the 4K through 3rd grade has to take for the new Act 20 has started. I have not started, but I'm sure some people have started. It's all online. We don't meet till July for the first time, so, but everybody has it. Everybody's got their books.
Sorry, Andy, but so they are actually going ahead full steam with this Act 20. I thought there was something about.
There's that's yes, I was on a webinar in May sometime. There's supposed to be a bunch of stuff in June that came out from DPI that has not come out, at least I haven't seen it. The screener that they're going to pick was going to be, they were going to choose it by now, they haven't, but one of them might be Fastbridge, which would be awesome because we wouldn't have to learn anything else or do anything.
I heard Ames Web today.
Well, I wasn't on the internet.
Yeah, we shouldn't look.
Thanks for raining on my.
Yeah, sorry.
So now, that's gonna make some decisions then, do we keep the data, do we keep using Fastbridge, because we know it, and that's the data we have, and we all have to do this. The first one won't, the one thing they have changed is going forward, it will be in the fall, winter, and spring, but this first one won't be administered until January, is what I saw. They were supposed to come out in June with the new parents. Shouldn't say that, a template for the plan that you're going to have for any child that is under 20, below the 20th percentile. That has not come out yet. There was also the part that got everybody wound up on the webinar, is that when a 3rd grader goes on to 4th grade, they're supposed to be above the 20th percentile. And if they're not going to be, what are you going to do? The lady was quick to say, This is not a grade retention. Just you have to show what you're doing and what you're going to continue to do as that child moves forward if they're not at the 20th percentile in the assessment. So those things haven't come out, well, today it did, I guess, I was on the tractor, so I didn't hear. But we'll continue with that and we'll figure out what we have to do when it shows up. It was a good end of the year. Summer school, we have 10 less signed up so far this year than we had attend last year. So, and a bunch of kids showed up when we started, so I'm sure a bunch will show up on the first day once we have it. So I think we might have a few more this year than last year is my hope, is what we're planning, is what we're gonna have. But the schedule's ready, just about, I talked to Heather, getting her feet wet with lunch schedule and stuff, and so I let her know how many kids are coming, but that's where we're at. Any questions? Short and sweet.
All right, just check, did everybody get the class numbers that I sent with the schedule to the board? With that, and again, the other part was middle school credits for kids. We can look at that at a later date, but just something to make everybody aware of, something to look down the pike. Some things to really highlight on that I think if you look in the last month of school, things that have happened have put us in a pretty good light in many ways, which are awesome. Starting with the Sea Perch, we had a number of kids who went out. We ended up in 18th place out of 75 teams from around the world, like literally around the world, like all over, which is pretty amazing. Many of those teams were like full-time teams with corporate sponsors and all kinds of things going on. So for us to do how we did, the experience those kids got was amazing. A big shout out to Mrs. Martin as far as what she did to basically raise the money that they went. People were super generous to donate. It was just a really good experience. So I think awesome for those kids with that. State track, we ended up going with a bunch of kids. Ended up with a girls 4x4 and 4x2 on the podium, which was awesome. Lots of kids, again, a great experience and opportunity to go. We've talked about the weight room a little bit. If you have not gone up to see that, you probably should. It looks very different. They're still kind of getting some things wrapped up, but for the most part, just looking at the dollars and the amount of work that Krings and the kids did compared to what it would have been if we would have had to pay is pretty phenomenal. So it looks very different up there. Within that, if you remember, Jeremy had reached out to some local businesses and you saw some of that tonight as far as the donations. We had some people who definitely were awesome and donated from the community, but Jeremy then kind of took the next step and put it out to all of the rest of the sports teams, and everybody just set up, well, our club will give this, our club will give this. And so now basically they've given $4,500 to do all kinds of new stuff. So we'll be able to put all new cow mats up there and basically spearhead to get that kind of where it's really in a good opportunity and an avenue to do it. So it was kind of one of those where, every sports team stepped up and said, hey, we'll give a little amount and help out with this. So I think, to do that within house mostly, a credit to Jeremy for spearheading that and Krings and all the kids to do that, which has been a great addition. Monday, Mrs. Eggy, I don't know if anybody saw that on the website, but Angela was named the 2024 Region 3 Pupil Services Provider of the Year Award. So really a cool thing. Katie nominated her, said some really nice things, which are all very true. So we're very lucky to have her and another great feather in her cap with that. The travel trip, somebody brought that up. They are out and about. I don't know if they're in Wyoming or South Dakota right now, but on a 9-day trip. Again, I think just Ms. Shulo has done an awesome job with that. So many kids that I don't think would ever get the opportunity to go on some of these trips and do these things, and the things they go and do, I think is just awesome for, real life experience. And I guess one of the last ones, state trap, kids went to that last weekend. Ellery Young was the number 3 female shooter in the state, which is awesome too. So some really good things with that. And with that, just wrapping up some of the end of the year duties type things here in June and taking some vacation time. Anybody have any questions or comments?
Two in it, 2 minutes.
What's that?
Taking some vacation.
Yeah.
All right, thanks, Aaron, and thanks, Andy. Next up, we'll convene the closed session pursuant to state statute 19.85 paragraph 1 part C. Considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which we have jurisdiction. The purpose tonight, administrative contracts rollover, administrative contract amounts for the coming school year, summer softball and baseball coaches for 2024, fall coaches for 24-25, and our superintendent evaluation. Motion to move into.
Closed session.
I'll second.
Motion by Earl, second by Janet to convene in closed session.
Bo Schrader,
Yes.
Janet Mathis,
Yes.
Earl Wallace,
Yes.
Isaac Wallace,
Yes.
Rich James,
Yeah.
Scott Walter.
Yes,
Thanks for being here, Katie.
Thank you guys.
yeah, thanks, Katie, thanks for your input.
What's that? Yeah, Phil.
Make a motion to approve the administrative contract rollover. Administrative contracts announced for 2024 and 25 season as presented to us.
I'll second.
Motion by Earl, second by Isaac to approve those things.
Earl Wallace,
Yes.
Isaac Wallace,
Yes.
Rich James,
Yes.
Bo Schrader,
Yes.
Janet Mathis,
Yes.
Scott Walter.
Yes,
Motion to approve the following for summer softball and baseball coaches for 2024 season. Softball, Lori Kaufman, Michaela Kaufman, Glenn Frederickson, and Tiernan Ernst. For softball, baseball is Ken Krings, Ryan Wiggle, Rhett Wiggle, Jackson Stokes, and Etika Agi. T-ball is Greg Smith, Ludica Gross, and Isa Olson.
Phillies.
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 Philly,
Elise.
Elise,
It's hard to read because of the font and the I and the L and the I. It's like, what is that?
okay. Whatever.
Tricia's very close.
Anybody second?
I'll second.
Motion by Earl, second by Bo to approve the stated list of coaches.
Bo Schrader,
Yes.
Janet Mathis.
Yes.
Earl Wallace,
Yes.
Isaac Wallace,
Yes.
Rich James,
Yes.
Scott Walter.
Yes,
For our fall coaches, head football, head coach Justin Goodrich, we already approved. High school football assistant Mike Martin, Zane Parker. Football assistant, half and half, Cody Krieger and Devin Bremer. High school cheerleading, Lydia Wallace. Middle school football head is Kevin Townsend. Assistant Charlie Strait. High school volleyball head, Amy Mathis. Volleyball assistant, Lisa Mathis. And volunteer volleyball assistant, high school, Rain Wiggle. Middle school volleyball head, Megan Schul. Middle school volleyball assistant, Rebecca Einspire. And high school coach head, Jake Gerke. Assistant is Sam Gary. And cross country head, we do not have yet.
Second that.
motion by Earl, second by Janet to approve the stated list of winter coaches.
Isaac Wallace,
Yes.
Rich James,
Yes.
Bo Schrader,
Yes.
Janet Mathis.
Yes.
Earl Wallace,
Yes.
Scott Walter.
Yes. One motion left. Motion by Isaac, second by, I'll second that one. Thanks for hanging in there, Rich. It's long to be on the phone.
No, but it's good discussion. Ken deserves the time and did a great job.
Thank you.